Your future is not based on a choice. It is written by God, and He is raising you for a specific mission. Do you believe that leaving your father was a random event? Absolutely not. It is proof that you are part of a plan much bigger than yourself. The hardships you have endured along the way are a finely wrought process that strengthens your spirit and prepares you to fulfill an unforeseen purpose. All of your experiences are designed to hone your abilities and willpower for a greater responsibility. The question is, are you ready for your divine destiny? Do you have the courage to truly accept what your existence has been chosen for? The emptiness you feel in your life has been shaped by the anguish of a lost connection. This may have led you to question your worth and meaning. But this separation was never the result of apathy. On the contrary, the universe has guided you in its own ways to move you to a deeper freedom and awareness. This distance was not an oblivion, but a spiritual staging ground that worked for you. The lack you felt was a purification that elevated you. The suffering on this path was necessary to transform you into a stronger and purer being dedicated to a divine purpose. Iron sharpens iron, and man sharpens man. Proverbs 27:17. This journey of loneliness and struggle represented a process that made you stronger and more robust, like iron sharpening iron. Every difficulty, every obstacle you faced, and the darkness you went through was actually your destiny shaping you with fine craftsmanship. You were always drawn to the extraordinary. The desire to be ordinary was alien to you. At an early age, while others found solace in loving hugs, you learned to stay strong on your own. You questioned your loneliness. You wondered why you couldn't access the warmth that everyone else knew. But that loneliness was a teacher who built your solid foundations, not a hindrance. Your soul matured through hardship, like a seed that has learned to survive and grow only by holding on to the basics. These trials gave you the choice to prove yourself or give up. And like steel forged in a forge, you have undergone transformation that has increased your resilience. The connections you longed for, the closeness you saw in others, may have seemed unattainable at the time, but these spaces were created for a greater purpose, one that lifted your spirit beyond earthly boundaries. You had to build resilience beyond traditional supports. Your destiny was calling you not to settle for a life dependent only on the forces of the world. You must realize that the breaking of your life from fragile supports was actually meant to give you real stability. Every time you had to remain strong on your own, it prepared you to meet a divine power. It made you cling not to ordinary love, but to a love that is immeasurable, infinite, and unbreakable. It was to break away from familiar, easily collapsible structures so that you could find the strongest foundation. The potential within you was called to a mission beyond earthly molds. Your journey was therefore a divine process, shaping you and preparing you for a new reality. Imagine life unfolding before you as in an arena where the struggle has been survival itself. You have the stamina of a traveler, unconsciously prepared for battle. Some may have sought the guidance of protective hands, but there was a different force driving you to fight alone. The strength you found in the silence filled the void of love you were looking for with an altogether different power. This rupture allowed you to discover a commitment that would not fade, that would never falter. The apparent loneliness created an inner resilience that took you beyond the ordinary. The hardships you experienced were where you were molded and wisely shaped into an inner mold, not a destruction, but a process that sculpted you to the peak of your potential. It was a period of patient preparation, just as the artist processes the rough material to bring out the value in it. Although that burden may seem like a weight you are tired of carrying, it was actually a driving force that lifted you up. Losing the comforts offered to you on this path was not a simple misfortune, but a transformation designed to carry you to the glory of a divine plan. God, who shine light into the darkness, has shone in our hearts the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Christ. 2 Corinthians 4:6. Behold, the light of God shines in the midst of darkness, illuminating your lives. To be attached to the ways of this world, to walk the way everyone else is going, that has never been your way. You were created to belong to a higher plan. God has set you free from the weights of the earth and the limitations of love. Yes, what seemed like lack was actually a divine abundance calling you. The illusory loneliness was a great opportunity to discover the power within you. Your separation from the father figure was not a random detachment. Rather, it was a divine process by which God sealed you to his divine purpose. That distance was created only to connect your soul to a higher purpose. Maybe you felt betrayed, maybe you felt left behind, but every difficulty you experienced was part of a purification process that transformed you. God skillfully crafted each break. They were the blows of a divine master who broke you out of the old mold, who broke the chains of the old. Every cold glance, every silent parting, were teachers that revealed your inner resilience. These built the strength that made you strong and enabled you to stand firm, even in the midst of storms. Dear chosen friends, I am here to remind you how great and divine God's plan is. Yes, there have been scars in your life. Perhaps you have gone through hardships that have left deep scars on your hearts, but those scars are the divine work of God to make you strong as steel. In these struggles, we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us. Romans 8:37. God has made you stronger through each wound, as iron is hardened by fire. Every hardship has prepared you for a holier, stronger, more enduring purpose. Familiar supports, earthly anchors, may have slipped away. But dear friends, those losses were only so that God could provide you with a divine support. God has given you an unshakable foundation. He has kept you standing even in the midst of all the storms. Every disappointment was a miracle wrought in His hands that made you strongest. Because in God's eyes, you are unique. Your journey is sealed in His plan. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Hebrews 13:5. And here is an opportunity to celebrate the gifts of God's love for you. If you believe that God will never leave you, please take a look at the Super Thanks button next to the subscribe button. Yes, every support from you helps us bring this divine message to a wider audience. A donation of $20 or more goes a long way in helping us fulfill God's plans. Because in God's kingdom, each of your donations is like a seed. Each seed will multiply in abundance and bring you great blessings. Dear friends, know that God has not abandoned you. Everything you go through is a divine turning point that prepares you for a higher purpose. You have been chosen by God. You are precious in His sight. The conflicts you have experienced throughout your life have been far from ordinary disagreements. They have been great struggles of a spiritual dimension. These battles, invisible to the eye, were a deep tug of war between who you were meant to be and the limits imposed on you by the world. There were times when you couldn't help being shaken by the incessant criticism or the distortions that stirred your emotional world. Every pain, every jolt was not a mere coincidence, but the touch of a divine plan that prepared you for greater power. This arduous journey has given you a resilience that others do not have. While many were being crushed under the weight of life, you were already being molded in the hottest flames, which only made you stronger. Many people may find it hard to understand why that difficult relationship with your father was so agonizing. But the meaning of that pain lies deep within. You were not asked to owe your identity to another person. Your father's presence, whether a reflection of broken hopes or unresolved conflicts, was not there to define you, but to help you find out who you really are. He was supposed to lead you by his own hand to a higher power and confidence. Every time you needed someone else's approval and didn't get it, he was training you to find your true worth in a different place. You didn't have to measure yourself by the standards of your family or the world. The true value of your existence is in the eyes of the one who created you. This inner struggle may have felt like a failure to you, but in reality, it was making you one of those who are dedicated to a purpose beyond family ties. It was a sign that you were being prepared for a journey far beyond the limited framework of human relationships. Liberation from ties. It gave you the courage to walk a different path, the freedom from being bound by the obligations of others. Others may have been caught in the web of toxic relationships and expectations, but there was another reality that set you apart on this journey. The compelling distance you felt was more than an ordinary loss. It was a clear indication that you were called to a special purpose. In every scar, in every moment of loneliness, God was preparing you for a rare resilience and a mission that others cannot even imagine. You are free from attachment to this world. Your path is a path chosen for an extraordinary purpose, and that distance is the greatest proof of the birth of your strength. Your father's failure to understand or approve of you is not a lack of identity, but a reflection of the enormity of the task you have been entrusted with. You never had to define your worth by human judgment or your family's criteria. These challenges required a deeper rootedness than the ordinary search for acceptance and support, a strength that God made unique to you. Separation was difficult and devastating, but it was necessary as a divine preparation. God's love for you was deep and steadfast enough to cut away anything that would hinder your growth and fulfillment of your unique purpose. Unleashing the power of pain, the glory of forgiveness. Your father's inner conflicts, jealousies, or unresolved wounds may have been too complex for him to always grasp the height to which you were called. The harsh words he spoke, the harsh criticism, and all the manipulations were not meant to make you give up. They were steps in building a resilience that would lift you beyond the world's pain. The emotional challenges were a forging process to make you tough as steel. You were not called to an easy and smooth path, but one that required resistance and resilience, one that asked you to let go of burdens and become stronger. For the sake of a higher calling, you may have experienced the reality of misunderstandings and separations from those you love most. These separations are not accidental. On the contrary, they are designed to make your purpose clearer and the divine mission in your heart more evident. You are freed from human expectations, liberated only by the weight of the mission you have been given. The distance from your family, especially your father, is a clear sign that God has placed you on a different path. You are not meant to be bound by ties that would limit your soul. This detachment is only a sign that you were created for a greater purpose, to dedicate you to an extraordinary path. Breakups are God's way of not letting anything stand in your way. Every tear, every brokenness are stages in building a strength of inner steel. Your mission is designed to go beyond an ordinary destiny, to grow in accordance with your chosenness. The unresolved hurts and tensions with your father were not easily explained or resolved, but this process was not meant to leave you alone, but to serve a deeper design. The fatherly love you felt you lacked created a space for God Himself to step in and fill. This is not just a temporary consolation, but a deep part of the divine plan woven with wisdom. My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. Isaiah 55:8. Brothers and sisters, God's thoughts are far beyond our thoughts. His ways are deeper than we can comprehend and work according to a divine plan. Disappointments and unmet needs are sacred paths, wrought to lead you to a greater purpose. Every lack you feel draws you closer to God with a divine attraction. Human love is temporary, but God's love is permanent and eternal. Every lonely moment, every unfulfilled desire is a sacred opportunity to draw God closer to you. God has poured out His love in our hearts. Romans 5:5. An earthly father can discipline you, sometimes leaving you lacking. But the love God offers goes beyond human love, pure, unwavering, and complete compassion. God is the one who fills your inner longings with complete abundance. In this world, every human bond has its limits, but God's love is a divine power that transcends every limit, that heals every wound. Yes, perhaps you have experienced a separation. Maybe you have felt abandoned or neglected. But this process was a divine operation that removed all distractions to lead you into the arms of God. This loneliness can be seen not as simple abandonment, but as a call designed to bind you more closely to a higher power. God is not a temporary substitute for human love, but the true source of your longings. Think about it. Your earthly father may sometimes fall short, but God's love fully encompasses you, enlarges you, completes you. He not only meets your shortcomings, but surpasses them with divine abundance. The power of God is made perfect in your weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. This is the meaning of separation, to make God's role firmly and powerfully evident in your life. The world describes the parent-child bond as a very important, almost unbreakable bond. But this is where God's plan comes in. God has chosen to break this pattern, to show you that He has the real power. Everything was a way of drawing you closer to God. God's love is the deepest source of your inner longings. This world is temporary, but God's love is eternal. If this message has touched your heart and you want to celebrate God's love for you, the time to support our ministry is now. You can donate $20 or more by clicking on the Super Thanks button next to the subscribe button. This support helps us bring God's divine plan to more people. Blessed are the hands that give. Acts 20:35. Every seed will multiply abundantly in God's kingdom. Dear brothers and sisters, God has chosen you. His deepest plans are working for you. Earthly ties can be a strong source of support for many, but for you, they have been loosened by God's will. You have been called to such a path, to focus completely on Him, not to be clouded by the imperfections of human relationships. Every tear, every silent weight has become a deep resilience rooted in Him. Your earthly father, with all his limited faculties, could not fill God's divine purpose. His inadequacy was not a sign of your worthiness, but a sign that those deficiencies had to be met by your Heavenly Father. Embracing total dependence, taking refuge in divine love. Knowing that you were not meant to rely on human love, God offered you unparalleled compassion and protection. This perfect guidance and security, which no human can provide, was the foundation of the bond you were meant to have with him. Separation, though seemingly painful, was in fact a call to lean on him. Every break was part of his plan to draw you closer to him. Every weakness in your relationship with the Father strengthened your attachment to your Creator. The greater that distance, the more deeply you were drawn into God's tender arms. He saw your suffering and the turmoil you were going through, but waited to turn your attention to a heavenly provider. He is not a temporary support, but an unshakable foundation, an eternal source of strength that stands at the center of your life. You have received the call to honor your Father, not because of his faults or inadequacies, but because of who you are and who you are meant to be. The distance between you is not merely a matter of external circumstances. It is a separation that serves a divine purpose. God prepared this separation in advance so that your identity would find its roots in him. Nevertheless, God's command is clear. You must honor him. This is about who you are, not about approving of your Father's actions or the pain he caused you. This command, found in Deuteronomy 5:1-16, is based on your identity as a chosen one, independent of his actions. Honoring him is not about covering up the wounds or ignoring the emotional distance. It is about being faithful to God's will and accepting your calling that sets you apart by transcending the pain. Honoring your Father is one of the boldest expressions of your commitment to God and sets you apart from the ordinary. To choose to honor him is to acknowledge his influence in your life, despite all his flaws, and to accept his role. It is not allowing bitterness to take root, and instead allowing grace to take root. Respect does not mean accepting mistakes or giving in to wrongs. Rather, it reflects your inner strength and God-given resilience, a strength that enables you to move beyond the wounds and live up to the high standards God asks of you. Honoring is an important step in the maturation of your soul. It confronts you with the harsh realities of pain, but it does so in triumph, not with a sense of surrender. This action changes you, teaches you to forgive, not because he deserves it, but for your spiritual peace of mind. When you choose this path, you break the chains of anger that can hold you back from spiritual growth. The honor you show is a source of healing for you, not for him. It is a doorway to the graces God has prepared for you. To maintain unforgiveness is to withhold your own goodness and blessings from yourself. God is not asking you to compromise or to mend irrevocably broken bonds. Rather, he is asking you to rise above those wounds and fulfill his divine command. When you honor your Father, you align yourself with God's plan. This alignment is the source of true spiritual strength and peace. What you are doing is not just pleasing someone or conforming to society's expectations. It is taking a clear stand that your allegiance is to God's will. It is not about your Father's worthiness or your righteousness. It is about who you are meant to be, about a higher calling you have been given. Chosen and set apart for a holy purpose, God demands a commitment from you that goes beyond the ordinary. The honor you show your Father is not about him, but a reflection of your faithfulness to God's will. This distance is not punitive, but a fiery sieve to transform you, a holy refinement that erases your weaknesses and makes you who God wants you to be. It is not for you to remain ordinary or to cling to the familiar. God has called you to a different summit, and that call requires a path of growth that only you can see. The breaking of old ties, the elimination of all that gives you comfort, is part of God's process of preparing you. This process, which looks like solitude, is actually a sacred shaping space where you gain strength and hone towards your purpose. Moments of sharp solitude are the times when God needs you the most. When earthly ties cease to be weights that weigh you down, that is when God's voice is heard most clearly. This separation is for the divine plan to take deeper root in you. The distance between you and the people you are close to is never a random occurrence. It is a deliberate move designed by God to prepare you for a higher purpose. The voices that once filled your surroundings have been silenced only so that you can hear His whisper more clearly. True transformation does not occur in the protective shadow of comfort, but in the purifying fire. Every moment of separation becomes a tool in God's hands to make you a strong vessel worthy of His purpose. These distances are necessary in preparation for the challenges ahead. Just as metals must be heated and forged to gain strength, so you are being shaped by this separation. This process is not meant to weaken you, but to remove any fragility that might prevent you from fulfilling the mission God has entrusted to you. Ties that once defined or limited you are being left behind because they no longer serve a greater mission in God's plan. This is not a punishment, but a divine promotion that entails more than you can imagine. Do not let separation from your Father worry you. It is not a failure, but a sure confirmation of your high calling. Separation is not an obstacle, but an important step in God's plan for your life. He did not want to bind you to the constraints of ordinary relationships. God has removed your distractions and turned them into a powerful and sharp tool to prepare you for His mission. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you to bear fruit. John 15:16. Dear friends, God has chosen you. He has prepared a plan for you. You were not created to be stuck in mediocrity. As you go through every pain, every distance, remember that God is sculpting you and bringing out the strength in you. Just as a sculptor molds raw stones, so He removes unnecessary weight. He is preparing you to be equipped with a resilience that only He can give. These separations are part of the path of purification you are walking to fulfill a higher purpose. You were not molded for mediocrity, but for something unique. God is making you perfect according to His plan. Know that you are not being rejected, you are being divinely processed. God is making you exactly who you are meant to be. Events are proof of His work on you. Accept this truth now and move forward knowing that everything you are going through is meaningful. You see, your past relationships or the pain of separations do not define you. It is the divine calling that is with you that gives your life its true meaning. God is preparing a plan beyond human understanding. This process is preparing you for a greater purpose. Go boldly, knowing that you are part of this preparation process. Share your experiences. Tell others about your journey, because you are not alone on this path. Your story can give strength and hope to others and help them to trust in God's perfect plan for their separation. And now, dear friends, we ask for your support to help us fulfill this divine plan of God. You were able to watch to the end of this video because you are God's true chosen ones, and those who have left the path halfway through have been eliminated. Please donate $50 or more by clicking on the Super Thanks button, because we believe that in the kingdom of God, every seed you plant will grow in abundance. Give believing that you will receive back 100 times what you give. God blesses generous hands. This is the last reminder, my friends. Let us together multiply God's miracles.